in the role of Grammy. I have three grandchildren who currently play on 14 different sports teams. So that keeps us busy, depending on soccer, lacrosse, and all those kind of things. But from a career standpoint, I was a hairdresser for 20 years before I even went to college. So there's always a tomorrow, right? Now you can change who you are and what you are multiple times. I taught for 20 years in the classroom. 15 of those years were with eighth graders in social studies and 21st century skills classes. And then my last 5 years I spent at the high school with juniors and seniors teaching sociology, tomorrow's teachers. And then I had a class of what we call disengaged boys, the boys that were not special ed. They just didn't like school. They didn't want to do their schoolwork. And it was my job to kind of coax them into doing the work they needed to do. And oftentimes it was through the explanation of sometimes you just got to do something to get to where you want to be. So if you want to graduate from high school, you got to turn in your papers. So that's kind of what that course was about. And then I was lucky in 2014, I was picked to be the local teacher of the year and then the state teacher of the year. Part of my platform was my first child, our son, who is now 45, got into trouble with drugs and alcohol when he went away to college. So part of my platform was talking about that and how families make it through. And then again, being a second career teacher. So that's where I was representing different families, different teachers in my role in 2014.
So,
Good morning, Dr. Hasini.
So,
My name is Maheshwar. I am an 8th grader from GPHS Penmaka. I would like to ask a question. My question is, what challenges do student teachers face?
so student teachers, one of the hardest parts is that sometimes they go into the classroom um, with unrealistic beliefs, right? They love history. In my case, it's social studies, and they love history, and they're going to teach history. And I often say to them, think back to your eighth grade or your 12th grade year and how many kids in your history class loved history and wanted to learn history. And they often said, not a whole bunch. So sometimes realizing that it's more about the activities to learn history than it is the content itself. Another problem is when they go into a classroom, they work under a mentor teacher, and sometimes their styles are very different. The mentor teacher wants to lecture and have kids listen and take notes, and the student teacher wants the kids to play games and do research. So that's one of the challenges too. And I'd say another challenge is they go in and they are full-time teachers. They're working 5 days a week. They have lesson plans, grading, all of those things to do, which makes it hard to have a part-time job to pay their bills. So that's the real part, the life part of student teaching. There's probably many other challenges, but usually they have their mind set on what they want to do and they feel engaged themselves.
Good morning, Dr. Asini.
Now,
This is Akbar. I am a ninth grader from Visit PHS Penmaka. With your permission, may I ask a question? What is the role of a student teacher in the classroom?
the way we do it in college, I'm involved, and I have to tell you, my oldest grandchild is an eighth grade boy, so it's interesting to hear your conversations as well. Um, the the they go in the school I teach in, they're there for 2 semesters, one full college year. The first semester, they're only there 2 days a week in that role, and then go back to their university for other courses. So in that role, they are kind of an observer, like a teacher's aide. They try to get to know the kids, but they're observing more than there are in the front of the room. hopefully by the time the end of that first semester, they've learned about the school because they're going to go back to that same school full time after in the second semester. So hopefully during that time, hold on one second. Just sorry. So during that first semester, they're kind of getting a feel for the land. They're figuring out where the bathroom is, what the school policies are, and trying more importantly to get to know their students. In the second semester, when they come back, now they are going to gradually take over the responsibilities of being that teacher in the front of the class. With guidance from their mentor teacher, they're going to plan lessons, they're going to create and locate resources to use. They're going to teach the lessons, give student feedback, grade papers. So they really will, in some ways, become the teacher in the classroom and encourage them with their successes, they get more comfortable and try new things.
Okay, Pooja, about to you. Thank you,
Thank you
Kathy.
so much.
Hi, Dr. Asini ma'am. My name
Hello.
is Pooja. I am an 8th grader from GPHS Pinaka. May I ask you a question? My question is, why is social studies important for students?
Okay. So now you're talking content, right? Like every teacher teach in our area, they either teach English or they teach math or social studies. And social studies for us is all eras, right? So we go from ancient history up until today. You could also do political science, government, all kinds of things in social studies. But I think when we think about social studies, we're usually thinking about history, right? Moving through time. And I think it's important because it explains a lot of things. Um, Sometimes, if you know what happened in the past, you can understand its effects, and it helps you look at today differently. Having the privilege of looking backwards with 2026 eyes makes it easier to say, oh, why'd they do that? Or, they should have done this. But then you realize that in today's society, we don't have that wisdom. So there's many different ways of looking at the same thing, right? So that's where social studies, by doing the research and the analysis and the critical thinking, it teaches us as citizens to do that today. When we read the newspaper, let's use those same critical thinking skills that we use to analyze what the ancient Greeks did or any of those kind of things, so that we can think more globally when we look at something that's going on. And my last 5 years, I actually taught sociology, which I preferred to actually teaching history because in sociology, you're looking at cultural things oftentimes going on at the moment. And that by understanding different cultures, different social behaviors and perspectives, especially nowadays when we're so interrelated worldwide, right? When I was in eighth grade in 1970. It was a different world. You knew what was going on in your neighborhood, and if you listened to the radio or watched the television, you had a sense. Whereas today you have it in your pocket, you hear everything around the world. So in sociology, you get to examine some of these social problems like poverty, inequality, discrimination, and you look at them critically, and you start to understand that what seems like an individual issue is really affected by and affects the bigger picture. So that's where I lean towards sociology. But still, the famous saying for history is if you don't know what has happened, you're destined to repeat the same mistakes.
Zina ma'am, my
Hello, how
name
are you?
is Mahendra. I am ninth. My name is Mahendra. I am ninth grader from GPHS Pramaka. I would like to ask a question.
Please
My
do.
question is, how can teachers make lessons interesting?
I think the first thing we have to do is know our kids, right? We have to know who we're teaching. If we're teaching, some of the student teachers I work with teach in a technical institute. So half of the day, their students are in history and math and English, and the other half of the day, they're in plumbing, biochemistry, uh, car maintenance. So their kids get to do things they like and therefore are willing to pay attention in class. And I think that's helpful when we know that we have students that, are truly meaning to be history majors and they want to investigate and they want to research and they want to voice their opinion. Or we have kids that are hands-on and want to build replicas or draw out things that make it make sense, right? Sometimes words make sense, sometimes pictures make sense. So I think finding out who the kids in the class are and have lessons that engage multiple methods of interaction. Sometimes you've got to listen to a lecture, and sometimes you've got to do research, but sometimes you can play a game or you can do a simulation. And I think to me, letting the kids lead the learning, getting to know the kids well enough to know what will engage them makes a lesson interesting. I think that's, to me, it depends. And I like to do in the beginning of the year, and I encourage my student teachers to do surveys of their students to find out what they like, what their interests are, and then try to bring that into class as much as possible and let kids experience history and feel history as opposed to sitting and learning history. Make sense?
Thank you so much, Kathy. And here are two questions from my side. So you started your career as a hairdresser, as you told. Maybe you worked for 20 years. It must be a lucrative one. And after that, you have changed your profession and you have transformed yourself from hairdresser to the educator. So what made you change the profession from hairdresser to the educator? Is there any special reason or has somebody influenced you to change the profession? And which profession you enjoyed most?
So when I was a kid, when I was in eighth grade, when I was in ninth grade, 10th grade, I was going to be a math teacher. I used to play school. I went to Catholic school where they had the nuns that wore and I would put a towel around my head and pretend I was teaching, and I loved teaching. I'm a terrible speller. I can't spell. I say that I had to wait for Google spell check to go to college because I'm such a bad speller. And I was creative. In eighth grade, I had the same teacher for math and language arts. And I wrote a story in English and language arts. She gave it back to me, and it was all marked up with red, commas missing, misspellings, and all that stuff. And I was dejected. I was sad. And she came over and she said to me, "But you can do math. Spelling you can look up. Math, you're smart. You have to be smart to do math." So okay, I was going to be smart, so I was going to teach math. I got to junior year in high school and I had a teacher that was not I was sick the first couple weeks of school. I fell behind. When I was asking for help, I was in an advanced class, so she had no time to slow down for me. So now I couldn't do math either. So I thought I was dumb. So then in 1974, you were either going to be a teacher or a secretary. So I started to do secretarial courses, but remember, I can't spell. So that wasn't working well. So I did bookkeeping for a little while. And on my way home, I got my job, my annual review, and they said, "You do a good job, but you talk too much. You're a little too social during the workday. We need you to, stay in your cubicle." So that day I went home and I was getting a haircut. I got a haircut and there was music going and all of that. I was like, this is fun. I always did my own hair as a kid. I quit my job, postponed my wedding, and went to beauty school. And I loved it for 25 for I stayed in the salon for 25 years. At 20 years, I decided I wanted to do something else. I had coached my daughter in softball. I was a class mom, and I always got picked to go on class trips. And I would always get, as I disrespectfully say, the knucklehead kids because I could control them on class trips. I made it fun. I helped them. And one of those teachers said to me, I think you should go into teaching. This is natural for you. And thought about it. At that point, I was, like I say, 42 years old. I said, I'll start and see what happens. And that was the aftermath. Like, I still do hairdressing. I still do my family's hair. I have a friend coming at 1 o'clock to get hair done, the grandkids. So I keep my hands dabbled. So I still do a little bit of both. And plus, I taught my clients when I did their hair, I made sure they knew how to blow dry their hair and how they knew how to, trim it a little bit if they didn't want to come in every 4 weeks. So it was in my system, I think. And I think the easiest thing for me to do is so I don't know, my house is a mess. This is my family room. I mean, my dining room, my kitchen, my family room. There's our big TV that we sit in front of. But this is my favorite part, is out back. This is my backyard, and my dog's going to go running. We have a pool that will open next week. So I like to spend time in the garden, and then see over there. And then I'll show you out front so you see what the neighborhood looks like. This is I don't know if you can you see the wall?
Yes, yes.
I got to go to Peru, and I was fascinated by the doors in all the buildings. So I took, where am I going? I took pictures of all the doors, and that reminds me when I'm there. And then this is the outside. This is the
So
the
beautiful.
neighborhood. Lots
Mm,
of trees right now.
yes.
It's about 29 houses on this street.
Okay. It's a bit cloudy over there. It's almost 11 o'clock.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Yeah, it's a quite overcast at present. The weather outside is quite cloudy.
Yes, we're supposed to get rain in the next hour or so. It's about 68, 70 degrees,
Mm.
but very windy, and the rain is coming. Not enough. We're supposedly in a drought. But we have water sprinklers on the lawns, so that keeps everything green.
Okay. Kathy, yes, yes. Now it's fine. Okay. Thank you so much for giving us a virtual tour of your home and outside weather. And before we close this session, may I request you to give a message to my students and my teaching community?
Uh, so my message would be believe in yourself. Surround yourself with people that will support you and help you be the best you can be. Think twice when making decisions to make sure they're good ones. And above all, you are enough. Take care of yourself and take care of your friends.
Okay, thank you so much. And my daughter is, in fact, she is hiding here, and she is suggesting me to show your pet dog.
My dog,
Yes.
Remy, come. Rem, let's see here. There she is. She likes to sit at the front door and watch. I lost your.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kathy, for your time, and we will see you soon. Bye for now. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye bye.
Yes.